And I have
Meeting
a
to order,
picture.
folks. The delegations are
nice.
online. The delegations are here. I think there's a total of 47 participants, including staff and council online. So thank you very much. I'd like to call this public meeting to order. I'm Sean Strickland, Chair of Administration, Finance, and Budget Committee. Thank you to everyone who is present tonight and for all of those who've also participated in our public engagement process. To kick things off, any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Okay, so in terms of my opening remarks, really about process. So as I mentioned, really pleased to have several delegations here this evening as our vision and plan for 2021 of the region of Waterloo and beyond begins with the upcoming budget. And as everyone on the line is aware, it's been a challenging year and a year like no other. In addition to tonight's public meeting, we've also launched an ad campaign to inform the public of the input session and how to provide written feedback. We've launched our online portal, Engage Waterloo Region, where we are consulting extensively with the public. That online initiative will close later this month, so those delegations tonight and those watching online, you can also participate by going to the region's website and sharing your views on the Engage Waterloo Region platform. Notice of our 2021 budget meetings have been given 21 days in advance through advertisements as per our bylaw and local print media, the record, as well as to the region's website. Excuse me. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is for the residents to share your views, and regional council is able to answer questions of clarification, but we certainly are in listening mode tonight. This is your night. We really want to hear your input into the budget process. For those who have registered to speak prior to the deadline, you'll have 5 minutes to speak, and there will be a little counter on the screen to help you gauge the timing of your remarks. If you registered after the deadline or you haven't registered in advance of the meeting and you would like to speak today, you'll have a total of 3 minutes to speak. In terms of some Zoom protocols, this is all new. We're doing this via social distancing because of COVID. We're all online. In the chambers are myself and Chair Redmond and some staff members, but we'd ask the participants in the public meeting to leave your video and camera please turned off and your microphone and audio muted until you're called to speak. I'm sure we'll have no issues with behavior or any outbursts tonight, but I'm sorry to say that in past Zoom meetings we have had some of those instances, so it will not be tolerated if any of these items occur, and you will be ejected from the meeting. So no interrupting of councillors, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others, turning your camera on at inappropriate times, and hate speech or defamatory comments. I'm sure none of that will happen this evening. So I welcome each and every one of you, and I thank you very much for your participation in advance. And I'd like to call on our first delegation, Mr. Greg Clark. Mr. Clark, the floor is yours, and welcome.
Thank you, and thank you to the balance of council and the chair for this opportunity to speak publicly about the budget being presented. I recognize that COVID-19 has upended every aspect of society, and in particular, delivery of municipal services. And the response and effort that the region and lower tier municipalities have demonstrated has been exceptional, and they should be applauded for their work. My concern is more with the financial aspects and the long-term impacts that the pandemic has had. The pandemic has put extensive pressure on municipal finances. However, the majority of these pressures will be temporary, and those that are permanent are still in flux as to their long-term impact. The budgeting of things such as transit fares and expenses based on 2020 is very short-sighted in my opinion, due to the fact that in 2022 they will be required to be rebudgeted again. Also, budgeting support from the provincial government as an operating revenue source in 2021 creates a false balance. In 22, that revenue source will go away and another major shift to the budget will be required. In addition, if the variance in revenue and expenditures is different than that anticipated based on those funding levels provided by the province, additional reserves or other measures may be required that haven't necessarily been addressed through the budget. And on a personal level, the impact of the pandemic has had on residents is extremely varied. There's many people in sectors of the economy who lost jobs and saw reduced wages. However, there are also many who saw a change in their work environment but no negative impact on their incomes. In terms of who pays property taxes, there's no way to ensure that the benefits of holding tax and rate increases at 0% is supporting those who need it instead of don't. And based on the fact that the most significant impact was on low-wage jobs such as retail and food services, with many of these people more likely to be renters who will not directly benefit from holding tax and rates at zero. And my final concern is that there is no picture of what all the changes made in 2021 will have on the starting point for 22 budget. Using reserves is not a sustainable method of funding, and these expenses, unless one-time in nature, will eventually need to fall directly on the taxes and user fees. In reviewing the budget package, there's no communication of the impact these decisions are having on reserve balances and other long-term sustainability. And in order to understand the impact of 0% this year, we need to take a look at what are the longer-term impacts of that decision. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. You'll be happy to hear that we had a similar discussion earlier today during our budget deliberations, and staff are going to be developing a continuity schedule for the use of that reserve fund, so we can plan not only for this year but future years. So thanks very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chambers, Richard Chambers, welcome.
Hello, good evening. I don't seem to have a picture here. Anyway, may I speak anyway?
Yeah, absolutely.
Start my video. Hang on.
Yeah.
Here we are.
There you go.
Well, good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of council, thank you for giving me this opportunity to present a proposal to encourage Grand River transit ridership and relieve social isolation for older adults. I'm speaking on behalf of the Waterloo Region Age-Friendly Network, the Cambridge Council on Aging, the Mayor's Advisory Committee for Kitchener Seniors, the City of Waterloo Age-Friendly Committee, and the Woolwich Township Seniors Association. We're requesting that Grand River Transit assign 1 or 2 days per week for free older adult transit and/or free off-peak hours transit for older adults. Last year's Ride-a-Bus events to show older adults how to use the transit system were a great success, thanks to Peter Zink and staff members Rachel McAuliffe and Dave Steffler. This year, with the pandemic, the in-person sessions have been replaced with a newly produced Ride-a-Bus video from GRT. Plans for its rollout in January are underway. The purpose of the video and regional events is to make older adults comfortable with the transit system. Sustainable transportation is a strategic focus for the region. The region's strategic plan talks about reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing climate resiliency as key considerations in regional decision making. In other words, encouraging residents to drive their cars less and take public transit. We know that reliable public transit plays an important role in maintaining independence and supporting mental and physical well-being for older adults, physically and socially linking them to their communities. Limited access to public transit contributes to a decreasing quality of life, social isolation, and reduced interaction, leading to anxiety and depression, both of which are being exacerbated by the pandemic. In Canada, by June of this year, transit ridership nationally was down 74.6%. 42% of former Canadian transit riders now work from home. Our proposal is for free ridership for older adults on specified days or free off-peak hours rides. We wouldn't be the first to do this in Canada. Calgary has free ridership in the downtown area. Winnipeg has 3 free bus routes to the downtown. Laval, Quebec has free service every day, anytime. Burlington, Ontario has free off-peak hours for older adults, 9 to 2:30 on weekdays. Ottawa has free service for older adults all days, Sundays and Wednesdays, and Hamilton has free service every day for older adults over 80 years old. Since 2012, Oakville has had a free service for older adults on Mondays. The free Monday service increased ridership in Oakville by 578% in the first year. Free transit programs have the potential to shift travel behavior away from private vehicles, an environmental benefit, and to encourage public transit use among older adults. Soft benefits of free days or off-peak travel include quality of life improvements like visiting friends, shopping, and supporting local businesses. The Oakville study showed that older adults with low incomes were 5 times more likely to use free transit days. Our request is to conduct a pilot project as soon as possible, which would allow older adults 65 and over to ride Grand River Transit vehicles for free 1 or 2 days per week or during weekday off-peak hours. Pilot projects should last long enough to evaluate the effectiveness of the program on ridership and to assess the hard and soft effects of free and accessible transit on the older population of the region. Lengthening the project to beyond the limitations of the pandemic would provide more accurate information. By next spring, with the event and distribution of vaccines, we hope that more people will feel confident about leaving their homes and getting back into social circulation. Ride-a-bus events this winter will explain the rules of transit riding to older adults and give them confidence to use the system. Rides on specified days or during off-peak hours this spring and summer would allow older adults to make use of the practices that they learned through the ride-a-bus sessions and to access the system. The results will be increased ridership on the GRT, reduced social isolation for the region's older adults, with the environmental benefits of fewer cars on the road. The Mayor of Burlington in 2019, renewing the off-peak hours program for older adults, said, "I want to eliminate as many barriers as possible to get more folks comfortable with our using our local transit system, and transit does that." We agree with her. We hope you do too. Thank you for considering this request.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. We do have a question. Councillor Kiefer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Chambers. My computer was coming in and out. I think you did mention what you meant by in your proposal, the age for older. Did you say 55 years of age and older?
No, I said 65 years and older.
Oh, 65 years. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the clarity. That's all I need.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chambers. I see no further questions, so thanks very much for coming out.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, David Marskell and Frank from the museum. Frank, I'm sorry, I didn't want to try your last name. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
Good evening. Actually, Frank will not be able to join us tonight due to a personal issue he's dealing with, but thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the museum, and thank you for your ongoing support. I am going to share my screen with just a few slides, which I hope I can do easily and keep within my 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's working, David.
Beautiful. Okay. So again, thank you very, very much for your ongoing support and allowing us, the museum, to awe-inspire and enlighten families throughout the region. 2020 has been a year of rethinking our operational model and innovation. In March, we reduced staff by almost 40% and focused on off-site and online activities. The off-site activity has been extremely successful when we attracted more than 50,000 paying guests to our Dino drive-through in partnership out at Bingman's in just 3 weeks. This represents half of our annual attendance. The online activities also have been successful for us as 250 visitors paid for tickets to Pickle Fest, our annual event that normally sells out to 500 people in person in a couple of hours. And we had over 1,300 viewers watch the event online. Last weekend, we engaged with over 100 families with Santa calls, which was just perfect for this season. In total, we have engaged more than 50,000 visitors since the pandemic closed us down online, and we plan to monetize 30% of that of our offering by June 30th. We have also rethought our curriculum delivery and have invested in Desire to Learn's online platform, Brightspace. We will begin offering online curriculum programs this January with sponsorship from the school boards. On today's agenda, there is a report not in support of my proposal from 1 year ago. That proposal requested a pilot project for free access to the Grand River Transit for students on curriculum study trips. The reason given is that the region enjoys $17,500 through discounted student passes. The museum would request to be the sponsor and pay that $17,500 for a 14-month pilot project beginning next November. We would pay the region to allow all students on school trips to ride for free to 6 organizations, including the Idea Exchange in Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo Region Museum, and the 4 key cultural organizations, including the museum. We're preparing to reopen in the new year with exhibitions on sound and the continuation of our indoor and outdoor dinosaur festival. I'm really excited about the age of big, weird, feathered things. This overall business approach and success has made us ineligible for 100% of the federal wage subsidy, as we've become too successful for their criteria. And I'm mixed emotions, but I think I'm kind of proud of that. 2021 is the year of the Rolling Stones in Canada. Working with the band's manager, we have secured the exclusive rights for Canada. Unzip will draw tens of thousands of tourists from across Ontario, Quebec, and northeastern United States, and to downtown Kitchener in the heart of Waterloo region. It will undoubtedly go a long way to reboot our local economy, supporting hotels, restaurants, gas stations, retail, and other cultural groups. Our festival strategy is gaining partnerships, and I believe the Rolling Stones Festival over 3 months will be larger than hosting the Juno or Memorial Cup. We would like to work with staff to ensure the region capitalizes on this world-class, once-in-a-lifetime blockbuster exhibition. Additional dollars for promotional for outside the region will bring huge economic benefits, and we would appreciate your support of the report that you have in front of you. We also are happy to work with staff to find the best scenario to maximize this blockbuster for the entire community. I applaud the region for your continued commitment to our funding. Mid-fiscal last year, we committed to a number of goals which we have met. We're ahead of by 1 year of balancing our books. And today there's mention in today's report of a complete budget review of grants beginning soon. We'd love to know from staff what that criteria is and understand how we can work together. We realize you have had tough decisions to make, but your investment in the museum will pay huge dividends as a smarter community and huge positive economic impact, and help attract and maintain skilled workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Really appreciate that. And thanks for the overview of the great activities you've had at the museum over the past year. Are there any questions from council? I do have one. Councillor Verbanovic.
Just one question. Thanks a lot, Mr. Sutherland. I mean, Mr. Marskell. The question I have for you is with respect to the funding and so on, particularly in terms of advertising for Unzip. Have you been working with the Waterloo Region Tourism at all and looking to access, although admittedly hotel dollars are down a lot, there are some dollars through the hotel tax that are available for different things. Have you approached them at all for their support?
Yes, Minto, we've talked with Minto several times, and they're helping us build out hotel packages and partnering with the Idea Exchange and other cultural groups and restaurants. And we're building out sort of a build-it-yourself menu with people who wish to visit. We have bus tours already booked from as far away as Halifax. We've sold $80,000 in tickets a year in advance during a pandemic. This is a monster. This is huge. And I believe Minto has got one hand tied behind her back because there isn't a MAT tax, a hotel tax, because the hotels have been closed. So it's very difficult. And I understand all of that. And I do think that's probably the best place for us to work. But in talking with Bruce Lackner, who has been awesome, and I welcome him to the council and to the region. His guidance has been very, very great, and I just hope that we can work together to maximize this world-class event. It will be big, and we're already seeing the numbers starting to come our way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no further questions. Thank you very much, David. Nice to see you. Take care.
Best of the season, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.
Same to you.
Okay, Judea Oudshoorn. Judea?
Thank you. And it's Judah, but that's
Judah.
fine.
Sorry, Judah.
It's a
Welcome,
difficult
Judah.
one to pronounce at times. And I get to follow the Rolling Stones and dinosaurs. So I want to say thank you very much to Chair Redmond and members of council for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I do want to begin by thanking staff members who work behind the scenes to help prepare delegates. Thank you very much for supporting local democracy. I'm actually here to share two fairly serious points with you. I'm here to say to you that as a citizen of Waterloo Region with expertise in criminal justice, that we're past due to address the systemic racism of policing. It's time to do so by reallocating 15% of the police budget and putting it into Black-led and Indigenous-led services, as well as other community-based upstream programs. I do not want us to spend $200 million or 32% of property taxes on policing, an institution that systematically targets, harms, and oppresses Black, Indigenous, and racialized folks. Secondly, I'm here to say that I do not have confidence in the proposed police budget. Some of the rationale given by the police for the budget is narrow at best and distorted at worst. So why am I saying this? First, let's talk systemic racism. Local data published by the Record shows increasing disproportionate street checks, now called intelligence notes, and use of force against Black community members. The Record studied and published a number of years of data which showed that Black people were targeted for intelligence notes at 4 times the population rate. Last quarter, it was up to 6 times. That's systemic racism. If we want to talk about the outcomes of policing, Black people are incarcerated at 3 times their population rate. Indigenous peoples at 10 times their population rate. In fact, 42% of women in prison in Canada are Indigenous, which is of particular importance. We have the largest prison for women in Canada here in Kitchener. That's systemic racism. And yet, a key argument in favor of the police budget is that violent crime is up. First of all, what do crime rates have to do with what Black, Indigenous, and racialized peoples are telling us about harms they are experiencing by police? Second, if we want to talk crime rates, the overall crime rate is actually down. It's down 4% since last year. The police have been putting forward a statistic that there's been a 21% increase in violent crime. Yet the current data in their own reports show that the violent crime rate is only up 10%. But let's put that number in context. Crime rates and crime severity are down significantly in Canada over the past few decades. For example, between 1986 and 2012, criminal code incidents per officer fell by 37%. But guess what? Our spending during that same period on per capita policing increased by 46%. Why is the local police service giving us a narrow, even distorted picture of crime rates? Another rationale for the police budget is that calls for service are high. First of all, what does calls for service have to do with what Black, Indigenous, and racialized peoples are telling us about harms they are experiencing by police? Second, according to the October Police Service Board report, 80% of calls to police are non-criminal in nature. A snapshot of one of the region's busiest months for service, July, shows that 60% of calls for service were either mental health related or involved general welfare checks. Why are police telling us there is overwhelming demand for service when the demand is not for a police officer? And we can't call or send someone else and do good mental health work because police are consuming most of the resources. Chief Larkin argues that it is a false claim that overfunding police underfunds other upstream services. Yet this week, the Record published data comparing escalating police salaries and how local governments shifted $7 million into policing from other municipal salaries. As I speak, the local police have more money in reserve in their bank account than the cost to run the 5 regional childcare centers that are soon to be closed. We are reallocating and defunding in the wrong direction. We are giving too much money to policing, a profession that continues to be, as the Toronto Star tells us recently, in spite of years of unsuccessful diversity hiring efforts, mostly white and mostly male. I would ask you, where are our priorities? We cannot achieve equity with our current system of policing. Please prioritize Black, Indigenous, and racialized lives by rejecting those police budget. We need a proper 15% reallocation into Black-led and Indigenous-led services, as well as other community-based upstream programs. Please stand with the thousands upon thousands of your constituents who marched in June to demand the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Judah. We don't have any questions from council, but I can say that council certainly does take this issue seriously, and the police chief will be here in early January to present their budget and some of their ideas for reorganizing the department and responding to these very real concerns. So we thank you very much for that, and we will have a chance to have that discussion with the police chief on January 12th.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, Andrew Bennett. Welcome, Mr. Bennett.
Well, good evening, everybody. I'm firstly going to just say, as did David Marskell, thank you for having faith in the major arts organisations in this region and standing by this sometimes fragile sector, which has suffered consequences from COVID more than many other sectors of society and the economy. One silver lining in the last 9 months has been reaffirming our worth in this region. I mean, I've claimed it a lot, but I really am certain about our worth, having gone through what we've been through in the last few months. I'd just like to read you 2 quotes. One's for a patron. As you know, we've been producing online video material that's been widely acclaimed. She writes, "The video is truly excellent. Congratulations to Andre, our music director, and also the players, and to the no doubt numerous tech and production crew involved. I was once again proud to be a KWS supporter and hope you're to send this to friends around the world, as in, get a load of what my orchestra is doing here in Canada. Proud of you all." I mean, you know, we've had that over and over again. People are so proud of the work we're doing. But it also affects our musicians. And I'd like to read something that I won't name the musician concerned. This person wrote to me as follows. "We've been in this pandemic for a long time, and as each month passes, I become more aware of just how fortunate we are to be playing concerts and bring them to our audiences local and beyond. I keep hearing about performers who haven't been on stage since March, and I can't imagine what that must feel like. When this first started, I thought it would be nice to have a break from the hectic schedule, but now that we're into the new season, I'm feeling more and more thankful we get to perform weekly concerts. This is helpful to us in so many levels, and has made myself, and I'm sure many others in the orchestra, feel like life has some sense of normalcy to it, something that many people are struggling with on a daily basis." KWS has been recognised in the last few months for pivoting fast and incredibly effectively. Sometimes we're thought of as being a bit of a traditional organisation, but we've shown we're not. We're fast, we're effective, and we're delivering. We've also reinforced or reiterated our values, caring for our staff and musicians, our patrons, and the wider community. And I think we've been recognised for that. We've reached deep and wide in this community. In the period up till the summer, we served more people digitally than we would ever have been able to serve in person in concerts, and that process continues. And I'm proud to say that I'm going to use the I word, that we all hate it, but we have actually genuinely been innovative in the way we've worked. And I can say that that's been reported locally, national, even internationally. We were called out just the other day in a British publication saying how brilliant our pricing process was. We've been recognized for that. We're just coming up to the holiday season, and we're about to go through a phenomenon of which I'm extraordinarily proud, and that's Yuletide. Yuletide is more than a concert for KWS. As you all know, it's one of the great markers of the holiday period in this region. It brings the region together at a seminal moment to value each other and our loved ones, even if we're celebrating differently. And I hope that you as councillors and the whole region can join us in celebrating this coming weekend when the Yuletide concert will be available from Friday night through to Sunday night. It's a way we can feel that sense of normalcy, even if we're celebrating a different way. So please do celebrate with us, but also please commit to keeping the Symphony whole, even after the immediate impact of the pandemic is over. As I said, it's a fragile part of our community, and we desperately need the support, not just now, for the next 1 to 2 years. It's so easy to destroy an institution like Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony, and it's so hard to build something in its place which so successfully bonds the region together and expresses who we are and what we stand for. So please stand by us, just as you've done so over the last 9 months. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. It's great to see you, and thanks very much for that very positive report on the activities of the Symphony, and it's great to see how you've responded, what did you say, fast and effectively during COVID. So thanks for that. We have no questions from council, so thank you very much, and we'll look forward to joining you with that Yuletide concert this weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Good. Have a great Christmas.
Thank you. Yes, same to you. Mr. Chesney, William Chesney, Regional Waterloo Arts Fund. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity to provide input on the upcoming regional budget. I'm here representing the Region of Waterloo Arts Fund and its board of directors. The Arts Fund exists because of the vision and commitment of the Waterloo Regional Council and the support of all households in the region. Since its inception in 2002, just under $4.5 million has been provided directly to artists and organizations, adjudicated by a volunteer board of practicing artists and arts workers for a stunningly broad and dynamic range of creative initiatives of all kinds. It has allowed artists in our region to explore new territory, come together with their peers to collaborate and develop new ideas and approaches, and to share their inspirations and insights with members of the public. It has encouraged our creators to make art of all kinds happen, gloriously diverse and human, soothing or challenging, entertaining and informative, right here where we all live. Among other things, the creative in our communities function as social entrepreneurs, extending networks, making connections among individuals and social groups, offering insights, and enhancing the quality of life we all enjoy. It's very clear that individual artists and arts organizations everywhere have suffered greatly, even inordinately, during the pandemic. Making an economic value argument for supporting arts and culture is tricky at the best of times, even though impressive figures for spin-off or secondary economic activity are routinely cited for powerhouse organizations like the Stratford Festival. My purpose in coming to you this evening. Instead, I want to remind you all of the astonishing richness of artistic and cultural activity we have here in our region, especially at the grassroots and community level. Established organizations like Neruda, MT Space, Flush Inc., The Button Factory, InterArts Matrix, Numus, Greenlight Arts, Lost and Found, Pat the Dog, the Registry Theatre, to name just a few, as well as the many hundreds of individual writers, painters, playwrights, performers, and musicians everywhere in our region have had to pivot just like everyone else, making adjustments and tightening their belts to keep their lights on and their projects moving forward. In other words, to survive. My point is that the region's artists and arts organizations continue to contribute and to push forward, even under these difficult, harrowing circumstances, just as they always have. The arts require phenomenal commitment at the best of times. Many are called, but few are chosen, and every dollar of support is hard won and gets squeezed 2 or 3 times, as any artist will tell you. The Arts Fund Board is proud of our artists and creators, and we're proud of the role we have played over the years in contributing to their growth. Now, I've been told that the recommendation has been made to Council that the allocation for the Arts Fund remain unchanged. I urge you to accept that recommendation, as it represents not only crucial support for artists and creatives throughout the region, but also represents the ongoing wisdom and vision of this council in recognizing an important factor in maintaining an authentic sense of social cohesion and belonging for all residents of Waterloo Region. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chesney. And earlier today, we approved a recommendation to maintain the funding as is for all the arts and cultural organizations in Waterloo Region. So she'll be happy to hear that. And thanks so much for coming in. And we're very proud of the work of the Arts Fund and the contributions it's made to the quality of life in the region over the years. And thanks very much for volunteering to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Samantha Estoesta. Samantha, welcome.
Thank you. Before I begin my delegation, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting virtually on the Haldeman Tract, the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. Though it's important to acknowledge the land, it's only the first step. Allyship is a continuous process. It is not a designation that one can earn and hold forever. It is also not a label that one can give themselves, but one you earn from your actions and commitment to standing in solidarity, much like budget allocation. My name is Sam Estoesta, and I am a member of ReAllocate-Waterloo region, a group of concerned residents that came together to support local Black and Indigenous community leaders in their call to defund the police and reinvest in services for underfunded communities. Through solidarity statements, our region's leadership has declared a commitment to tackling anti-Black racism, fostering truth and reconciliation with the Indigenous community, and addressing poverty. These statements can be realized through the reinvestment of $29.3 million from the police services budget into community-led, culturally responsive upstreaming initiatives to support the building of communities that will thrive for generations to come. Like many in the region, my family made the difficult choice between sustainable care of our toddler during the closures of daycares and schools, our mental health, and being a two-income family. My partner stopped working in May to become the primary caregiver. Outside of our reoccurring bills and fixed costs, our variable spending was reduced to $300 a month. This spending needed to cover our groceries for 3, diapers and other needs for our toddler, and the occasional expense to support our local shops. I thought of my own childhood, how my parents gave me a full life of love while being incredibly creative with their budgets, stretching a dollar as far as it can go. It was community-led services, fantastic family and child programs, and the fact that my family was able to purchase an affordable home that made all the difference. While there are many parts of the Reallocating Reinvestment Plan, there are 3 core ideas I would like to focus on: intercultural community care services, inclusive and accessible housing and supportive housing, and family, youth, and children's services. Regarding intercultural community care services, the region's diversity must be reflected in the programs being offered to the people that deliver these needs. The cultural and ethnic groups of the region should all be able to have access to culturally competent and responsive supports. This can be done through community-led food security, farm, and garden programs, BIPOC-led recreation and leisure programming, intercultural restorative justice, and culturally appropriate intimate partner violence and sexual assault support services. We have just had a fantastic announcement when it comes to accessible housing. With the tune of $8.2 million, with $6.7 million of it being dedicated to the YMCA's Block Line Road build. This is an excellent opportunity for BIPOC community groups to be involved for an intercultural and social justice applied, a process that is in line with the YWCA's own diversity and inclusion statement. And regarding youth and family services, every child deserves affordable, quality, accessible childcare. Affordable and accessible childcare leads to the economic lifts that brings class mobility for lower income, often racialized families and families with children with accessibility needs. Childcare is a vital part of upstream services, and they literally pull families out of poverty, increase their health, and decrease social isolation for those with accessibility needs, and lower crime rates in their communities. Investing in the region's youth is a path towards creating an equitable and thriving region of Waterloo. As the region of Waterloo voted to defund childcare services, the immediate release of a detailed plan on the reallocated funds from the province specifically earmarked for childcare, inclusive of how lower income, often racialized families and families with children with accessibility needs will need to be how they will be given promised subsidized spots, along with a breakdown to the cent of each nonprofit center given funding through this allocation, is imperative. It should be noted that nearly a month ago, I pointed out in my delegation that many in our communities have perceived this move to cut childcare as a means to help pay for the $8 million budget at the time requested by the regional police services. This current proposed budget confirms this perception, as it shows funds were deducted from the childcare and added to the police budget. Finally, having heard this misinformation line a few times now by police service advocates, I want to make it very clear. Reallocate is not asking for reduction in police officers or the abandonment of mandated and legally bound services. There are many situations where a police response is necessary. We are asking the police to focus their abilities on major crimes, and we are asking the regional council to reallocate the funding that police services received to create or directly support organizations that provide these community upstream and social services, which are best addressed by trained professionals, specialists, advocates, cultural community leaders, and members of communities they support. To be an equitable, anti-racist Waterloo region, as promised in our statements, we need to prioritize these upstream services as outlined in the Reallocate Waterloo Reinvestment Plan instead of funding downstream services like policing. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Samantha. Really appreciate you coming in. Are there any questions for Samantha? I'd just like to share with you that we certainly do take much of what you said today very seriously. And as I mentioned earlier, the police chief is coming in January 12th to share with us his budget and plans for reorganization to respond to some of these community needs. And at the region here, we've also allocated funds for BIPOC initiatives. We've also put into place a process where we can get more input into our programs and our initiatives from the Black, Indigenous, and people of color community. So we are hearing and we're responding, and we really appreciate the advocacy that you and others in our community are sharing with us on these very important issues. So thank you very much for coming in, Samantha, and sharing that with us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, Kelly Smith, Friends of Waterloo Region Museum. Welcome, Kelly.
Hello. Hi, I'm Kelly Smith. As was mentioned, I'm the president of the Friends of Waterloo Region Museum. I am very pleased to come before Regional Council tonight. The Friends of Waterloo Region Museum is a charitable foundation that raises funds primarily in support of Seiling Waterloo Region Museum and Dune Heritage Village. And we work closely with the excellent staff at the museums to enhance their operation of the region's museums. Last June, we donated over $20,000 for costuming, support for the restoration work on one of the village houses, and funding for virtual programming that's been so crucial during the pandemic. I've provided you with two handouts that are in the addendum agenda that are also on the Friends of Waterloo Region Museum page on the museum's website. One is a timeline that outlines the history of our Friends group that began actually in 1956 when Doom Pioneer Village was first built at the Huron Road and Homer Watson Boulevard site. And we've been involved in the museum for almost 65 years now. The second document outlines the kind of financial support that we've provided over the years, which we totaled up was over $360,000 since 1998. As members of the Waterloo Region community, we're very aware of the crucial work that the region has had to urgently undertake this year, particularly leading public health and other emergency and essential services. We know that in the coming years really, the region must walk a financial tightrope between recovering from the pandemic emergency while also building a vibrant and growing community where people want to live and work and play and businesses want to thrive. So today, really, I just wanted to let you know that although our fundraising has taken a hit like so many other nonprofits this year, we are not deterred, and we have continued to actively support the museum throughout as best we can. We have a full board of 12 people with diverse skill sets, and over the next year, we have planned a mix of fundraising events, workshops, virtual programming, and gift shop sales. Our on-site events will resume when it's safe to do so. We're also actively seeking corporate and grant sponsorship opportunities over the next year. So if anyone's watching this, feel free to contact us. And we had two large fundraising events that we unfortunately in the end had to cancel in 2020, but we are working towards them for 2021. That's Once Upon a Summer Night, which will be a musical event in July in the evening that will be in the 1914 Village, and Starry Night next Christmas, which always sells out about 1,000 tickets in about 5 minutes. So we hope for that again this year. To help us this year, we created a virtual Starry Night video tour that we were able to share with some of our generous supporters, and we hope to use for future fundraising. And we will be pleased to share that link with council via email with our best wishes for the holidays. And next time we're back, we'll bring a donation. Check.
Thank you very much, Kelly. There's no questions from committee, so thanks so much for coming in, and it's great to hear that your group is not deterred, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person, and the treasurer will gladly accept that check. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Okay, the next delegation is Tom Strickland. Mr. Strickland, we haven't met, but I like you already.
Sure.
Are you there,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Strickland?
much, Kelly. There's no questions from committee. So thanks so much for coming in, and it's great to hear that your group is not deterred, and we'll look forward to seeing you in person, and the treasurer will gladly accept that check.
Sounds like you.
Thank you much. Keep up the great work.
Even sounds like you.
Okay, the next delegation is Tom Strickland. Mr. Strickland.
Hi.
We haven't met, but I like you already.
Mr. Strickland,
can you hear me? Unfortunately, my
Thank you very much, Kelly. There's no questions from committee, so thanks so much for coming.
He had his YouTube on and it's hesitant
hang
or
on for a
whatever. If he
second,
could shut
Councillor
that off, we'll be able to hear him better.
Mr. Strickland, you'll have to turn off the webcast. So you have the webcast on, so that's why there's a delay and we're getting the reverb. So if you want to give me a thumbs up to the screen, you understand what I'm saying?
I think he may not be hearing you.
You should be able to hear me. So maybe we can try unmuting him now. Let's see if he's corrected it. I think he might have.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, okay, we can hear you now, and you turn the webcast off, Mr. Strickland?
I did. Oh, here we go. And then but unfortunately, that my PowerPoint is not coming up with something to share.
Okay. There's coming now.
There we go. Thank you.
Ready to go. Ready to go.
And okay. So thank you for allowing me to speak to you today. I'd like to propose a reallocation of some of the cycling budget for the Cambridge area to more effectively utilize our tax dollars. For today's purposes, I've made two assumptions. So yeah, there we go. Two assumptions. First, we have no detail for the 2021 regional budget. I've assumed that the detailed plans from the 2020 budget will be maintained. I also assume the cycling improvements identified in the recently approved Cambridge Cycling Master Plan will be implemented when the region does work on those routes. I'm going to use the term AAA connections. Those are connections between two key destinations, 100% on cycling routes meant for all ages and abilities, either multi-use trails or separated bike lanes or wayfinding routes. Wayfinding routes are signed routes to key destinations, including local bike routes on simple residential streets. These AAA connections may cross major streets or intersections, but other than that, they are AAA. So how are we doing with AAA connections today? The next slide shows what I suggest are the 7 key destinations in the city of Cambridge. They are Hespeler, Preston, Galt, Blair, Cambridge Centre, South Cambridge Centre, and the Cedar St. Andrews residential area. As you can see from the slide, today there are no AAA connections between any two of these key destinations. Every route has at least a short distance that is clearly not AAA. Just as a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, a cycling route is only as safe as its riskiest link. The good news is the current plan will make significant improvements. The next slide shows the AAA connections we will have by 2025 if all the plans in the 2021 city and 2020 regional budgets are implemented. This is better, but Galt and Cedar St. Andrews still don't connect to anywhere else, and you still can't go anywhere, go from Hespeler to Preston. It is progress, but it could be better. What if we could make AAA connections from all 7 destinations to each other with just the money in the current budgets, or maybe even less money? Here's a proposal to do that. First, we save some money. Right now, 3 major roads are planned to get dual multi-use trails, 1 on each side of the road. What if we just did 1 side of the road? That would save 9.9 kilometers of multi-use trail, or roughly $3.1 million, based on the cost identified in the Cambridge Cycling Master Plan. What could we do with those savings? Let's look at what is needed, in addition to the current plans, to get AAA connections to all 7 key destinations by 2025. And for some reason, oh, there we go. That is shown in the red circles on this slide. We need 1.2 kilometers to connect Hespeler to Preston, 0.3 kilometers to improve the connections to Cambridge Centre, 0.3 kilometers to connect Preston to Galt, and the big one, a ring road around the Galt core of 3.8 kilometers of AAA routes. The ring road is similar to the Kitchener downtown cycling grid that was just approved this month. We would also need several new wayfinding routes on residential streets, but they are inexpensive, just destination signs, no actual road work. What does this Galt ring road look like? My apologies for the low-tech map, but I think you can see the grid. It is the thick black line going from Wellington to Concession to Grand to Park Hill. Coming off the grid are 4 spurs that connect directly to 4 multi-use trails. This one going up to the Blair Road Trail to Blair, this one going onto the Dan Springs Trail towards Preston, this one connecting to the Mill Creek Trail towards Cambridge Centre, and this one directly connecting to the Paris Rail Trail to Paris. The red lines are proposed new wayfinding to various destinations. So in summary, the proposal is to remove 9.9 kilometers of mostly redundant MUTs from the current plan. Instead, we could build 5.6 kilometers of AAA routes that produce a complete web of AAA connections across the city, south to Paris and north to Kitchener. Note that the routes are a mixture of city and regional roads. This needs to be a coordinated plan. There is much more detail to the proposal, too much for a 5-minute presentation. I have recently shared the full proposal with the active transportation heads at the city and the region. Thank you for letting me speak to you tonight. I'm happy to meet with anyone who's interested in a more complete presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Are there any questions for Mr. Strickland? Seeing none, did you say that you've shared that with the Active Transportation Committee so our staff has a copy of your proposals, Mr. Strickland?
Yes, Lisa at the city and Cornell at the region have copies of it.
Okay, excellent, great, perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Okay, Susan Cadell. Ms. Cadell, welcome, Susan. There you are, hello.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good evening, Council. My name is Susan Cadell. I'm a longtime Waterloo Region resident, and I live in the Victoria Park neighborhood, and I'm a professor of social work at Renison University College at the University of Waterloo. I've recently spoken to Regional Council in support of the land back camp that was then in Victoria Park and is now in Waterloo Park. I miss being in their backyard, but I've been impressed with the initiatives undertaken by first the City of Kitchener and now the City of Waterloo, and I applaud the efforts of the region as well in terms of our Indigenous neighbors and community members. Tonight, I wanted to join you to speak up in favor of reallocating police funds as you consider your budget. I understand that that's not coming until January, but I am concerned, even with the language of how it's being described as being presented to Council. I would urge Council to be very critical of what is being presented to you, half of our community. Both Judah Oudshoorn and Samantha Estoesta have done amazing jobs of detailing numbers and giving context to the ReAllocate Waterloo Region group. I want to express my support for what the ReAllocate Waterloo Region group has outlined. Their website is clear, their demands are thorough and well articulated, and I support every single one of them. Upstream prevention programs are hugely underfunded in our community. As a social worker, as a researcher, as a community member, I want to particularly address the idea of the reallocation of funds in terms of mental health services. There is so much research to support reallocating funds to better support mental health services. There are so many models, so many different approaches. There's scads of evidence about housing first. Mental health is only one of the benefits of housing people safely. and the research and alternatives form the bedrock of the reallocate demands. And I just want to note that while I've been sitting half listening to the other presentations, I've just been scanning the literature and just come across a new article, a 2020 article called The Thin Blue Line of Health, Police Contact and Wellbeing in Europe. And one of their conclusions is that police-initiated contact was associated with worse health and well-being. The police themselves admit that they are constantly in crisis mode. They also admit that they are not appropriately trained for responding to many of the calls that they are called to respond to, especially mental health ones. And there are detailed examples of alternative approaches on the ReAllocate region website and many others. So again, I just want to say that I think the demands are clear and detailed, and I understand that the pandemic has changed so much and put a strain on many budgets. I also want to say that I, as you may have noticed, am a white person. I recognize that there is systemic white supremacy at work in our institutions. I work in one of those institutions. I see it every day. I hear about it in our classrooms. And I experience it in my workplace. I think it is very much time for us to be listening to those who are most impacted by policing. But let me be clear, it is not just Black and Indigenous and people of color who are impacted. We are all impacted. As Emma Lazarus says, until we are all free, none of us are free. And I think that's a really important message of solidarity. The last time I spoke to council, I finished by saying, why now? And I paraphrased our Prime Minister and said, because it's 2020 and it's time. And I really think that I want to reiterate that. It is 2020, it will be 2021 when you decide on the budget, and it is past time. Please take these demands into consideration when you are dealing with the budget that is presented to you by the police. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cadell. We really appreciate that. And just to reconfirm, we certainly are taking it seriously, and we will be eyeing that budget with a critical eye. You can be assured of that. So thank you very much for coming in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the following delegations have 3 minutes to speak. Scott, Morton, Ninomiya. Scott? Yep, Scott, are you there?
Yep, here I am. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening to members of council and everyone listening. I'm speaking like many in support of Reallocate Waterloo Region's plan to reinvest $29.3 million of police funding to build upstream community capacity so desperately needed in this region. I have many connections here. I live in Kitchener. I'm pursuing a PhD at Waterloo, and I attend Mennonite Church in Woolwich Township. My connection and concern for the work of ReAllocateWR has equally deep roots. I've provided frontline support to refugee claimants in Kitchener, worked for almost a decade promoting restorative justice, both here and within the Newfoundland Justice Department. I worked for 5 years at the City of St. John's on affordable housing and learned firsthand about the enormous pressure and limited resources faced by local governments. Back to the region 5 years ago, I've become a leader of the Truth and Reconciliation Working Group of Mennonite Church Eastern Canada, building relationships with Indigenous leaders across our shared watershed. All of these experiences have changed how I see the world. I am lucky to live in a community where someone comes running when I call 911, but I am extremely privileged. The system that responds to my 911 call was built for people like me, and it serves me well. BIPOC members of our community too often find themselves ignored, intimidated, surveilled, profiled, beaten, or worse by that same system. BIPOC folks have said this loud and clear for a very long time, and Judah Oudshoorn gave us all the stats earlier, as well as other speakers tonight. Sadly, many of us only started really listening when the headlines and the streets filled with demands for justice like never before in 2020. So members of council, I urge you to keep listening even after those demands fade from the fickle news cycle. We need to make the fundamental changes that ReAllocateWR is proposing to ensure that the system that keeps me safe when I call 911 does the same for everyone. I urge you to look at the ReAllocateWR website to learn about excellent initiatives in other communities, like the STAR program in Denver, Colorado, and the Bear Clan Patrol project in Kenora. I can say from my years of restorative justice experience that these are world-class models of innovative, inclusive approaches to community safety. Effective upstream programs like these keep everyone safer, including police and other first responders. Our caring, innovative, and diverse region has enviable potential, as you know. We are the home of world-renowned restorative justice leaders like Mark Yancey, who served on this council, of course. I urge you to engage our diverse local potential and heed the wisdom of ReAllocateWR, which is informed by the lived experience of BIPOC members of our region. We must make our community safer for everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Scott. We really appreciate you coming in and joining the voices of others who shared similar concerns tonight. So thank you very much, and we do take these concerns seriously. Okay, thank you. Next delegation is Caleb Redekop. Mr. Redekop, you have 3 minutes, sir. Welcome.
Yeah. Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here to encourage as many others, the Budget Committee and the Council, to listen to the Reallocate Waterloo region to defund the police and reallocate that budget of $29 million. I do not want to frame this as a competition, but I honestly believe that services other than the police can provide better community safety and support to the marginalized communities in the Waterloo region. As someone who has worked with the street-involved community in our cities for over 6 years, I can speak from personal experience that the need for funding is great here. So I've worked closely with Waterloo police officers during this time. I've had many good interactions and also not so good interactions, but many of them also talk about their lack of training and their lack of ability to address crisis when they come on, especially around mental health. So I believe that we need to start thinking creatively in ways to approach mental health crisis and street involvement in a more productive way than with police officers. So in these interactions, I cannot help though to think about the funding disparities between the police and the frontline agencies who are addressing this support. I've seen when police are called into situations, their skills do not match what is needed, and this can be dangerous for everyone involved. I believe we can do better in our community, but providing many different tools, not just policing, to address mental health and public safety. This is why I'm here today. I believe that is an important time in our region and as a society. We can be leaders and innovators in this movement towards better and safer society for all. Let's not fall into the trap of thinking policing is the only solution to public safety. It's just one tool, and we're not funding other tools properly. There is so many more tools that can be provided. So I speak from my experience, but I want to deeply thank the Black and Indigenous leaders in our community who have started this conversation that I believe will benefit us all, especially the street-involved community and individuals who struggle with mental health and addiction. So thank you for listening today, and I ask you to please consider creative and alternatives to policing for public safety in our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Redekop. Thanks for coming in. We do have a question for you. Councillor Schatz.
Thank you. Thanks. Good to see you, Caleb. You're sort of underneath my, behind my computer, so I can't really see you. But a question for you. Worked in this system, and there are some upstream initiatives that we're working to improve and you know, that can help. And maybe this is an unfair question, and if you think it is, don't answer it. But what programs do you think should be funded more heavily in order to produce a good result?
Yeah, so I think there's many. I'll just speak from a personal experience just very recently. Someone was going through a deep mental health crisis. This individual needed to go to the hospital. And for frontline workers, the only option right now is to phone the police, even though we know that interaction is going to go badly. So we need to think of creative, innovative ways. And if you check the Reallocation website, there is some other cities who are doing creative things. Toronto is just implementing a program. So I don't want to speak, I think there's many others, but for me personally, I think it's how can we do crisis support in more meaningful ways and fund it well? Because what I see right now is police officer will come and there's a frontline worker who's doing most of the work there. They're getting paid half of what that police officer is getting paid, and they have a minuscule of the resources that the police officer would have. So I think we can start thinking creatively in terms of how we can address crisis in better ways than just kind of enforcement.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. Thanks again, Caleb. Really appreciate you coming in tonight. Okay, we have no other delegations that have registered previously, but it is a public meeting, so I'll call for delegations. If there's anyone on the Zoom call who would like to address council, if you could just please indicate. I'll call for delegations a second time. And delegations a third time. So seeing none, thank you very much. The public delegation part of our public input meeting tonight, I'll call to a close and carry on with the rest of the agenda. Communications, any items of communications? Other business? Okay, and then we've got a change. Rather than going to adjournment, we need to go into closed session. So I have a motion to go into close, moved by Councillor Erb and seconded by Councillor Kiefer. If you could vote accordingly using the icon. Chair Redmond and myself have voted in the affirmative. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you very much. We'll just change seats here and we'll get started again as fast as we can. Yeah. Okay, so approximately 5 minutes. Thank you.